try to make the world a better place. Zootopia came out in 2016 and was yet another monster hit for Disney Animation Studios. It cracked just over $1 billion worldwide, and a sequel is coming out in just a couple weeks, hence the revisiting of Zootopia. A film that I admit I was never the biggest fan of. I did find some of it funny, I found some of it heartwarming, but in all honesty, a lot of it felt just kind of samey. But realistically, being a monster hit like that, it was gonna get a fucking sequel, and a lot of talent involved in the cast and in the directing and writing, portions. So realistically, pretty fun movie overall. If you're unfamiliar with Zootopia, basically, animals live in a city called Zootopia. I know, in a film called Zootopia. How fucking mind-blowing. Where we have a bunny with big dreams named Judy Hopps, voiced by Jennifer Goodwin, who decides to be a cop. She has dreams of being a cop. We see a little bit of her origin story. She goes to the big old city and is put on parking duty by her chief, voiced by Idris Elba. Not that you could fucking tell because he has such an indistinguishable voice. By that I mean you could totally fucking tell it's him even before he speaks. But nevertheless, while being on parking duty, she finds out that there's a lot more seedy shit going on in Zootopia and uncovers a plot to basically turn predators absolutely into the worst savages possible, because predators can never change the key component of their DNA. So yeah, that's pretty much it right there. Can people change their DNA? I mean, not really, no. But you can change who you are deep inside. At least you can't change your DNA until the device is complete. And we do have some other, name actors doing the voices as well. Jason, Don't Call Me Master Bateman, who voices Nick Wilde, the Fox. Yes, for those that have seen the trailer for Zootopia 2, none of this is really surprising. We do have Jenny Slate, the very gifted Jenny Slate, by the way. I'm really glad she was in a Disney movie. And then she was in Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. She voices Bellwether, who is a sheep assistant to the chief. And gee, I wonder, or the mayor, but I wonder if she's going to have anything to goddamn do with all this. Yeah, there's that. There's J.K. Simmons, there's Bonnie, Don't Call Me Mike Hunt. Have to really space that out there. Octavia Spencer, Alan Tudyk, as well as Shakira. Try to find the subtleties in Shakira's character and Shakira's involvement in this film. Remember when Shakira was just an artist and there wasn't all that stuff going on about her out in the real world? She really was just somebody that could just get by on doing dancing moves and shaking her ass. I mean, I'm not saying she doesn't have vocal talent, but her talents lie elsewhere. Enough dumping on Shakira, especially if she's into that. $150 million budget, $75 million opening, $341.2 million in the U.S. and Canada. So it was a hit, but not the biggest hit. Like, Disney's lucky they have such a wide audience worldwide, because otherwise it might have been considered a flop if it only made $500 million, but it made just over $1 billion, like literally $1.02 billion. And we do, get a nice openings. By the way, spoilers from here on for those that haven't seen it. We get an opening with Judy doing some acting with somebody pretending to be a predator and the blood spraying out like ribbons and stuff like that. That was kind of nice. And now predators and prey can live in harmony. She wants to be a cop. She has big old dreams. She even tries to stop a guy named Gideon, who is a bit of a bully, even scratches her face. That factors in a little bit later on. But she got the tickets back for the people, because back in the Bunny Burrow, where the population is always changing, that was a nice little touch, I'll admit that. She, just has these dreams. She goes off and she's doing the obstacle course stuff. Her parents are worried about her, but she knows that she can succeed. But her parents do give her some fox repellent, a fox taser, because what does the fox tase? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for those memories. Moving on. Yeah, the Shakira song was very subtle, like a brick to the skull. And essentially, one of the funniest lines, actually, it's one of the stupidest lines, but Idris Elba says, "We need to acknowledge the elephant in the room. Francine, happy birthday," because there's an elephant right fucking there. It's stupid, but I love that kind of humor. There are 14 missing animals that turn out to all be predators. They don't know what's going on. And Yeah, Judy wants to become the best parking attendant and that kind of stuff, handing out tickets if your meter even goes 30 seconds past. She does 200 tickets, and then she runs into Nick, who has a baby that actually turns out to be anything but a baby. They're running a side hustle to basically sell their own version of popsicles and stuff like that. It's a big old lolly for 15 bucks. How would anybody carry that? How would anybody carry that? It seems so impractical. But there's talks, there's themes of classism, racism, bigotry, that kind of stuff. Not understanding that every animal has their differences. They have their good, they have their bad parts, but everybody can get along in harmony to an extent. And they're all trying to get along, but then basically once Judy stumbles upon what Nick is doing the reselling of the lolly, she does see him, selling to the lemmings a little, guinea-like things. It's kind of cute. And we get Everybody Hurts by REM. Nice needle drop there. And then she chases a weasel stealing some, what looks like onions, but they're actually not onions, through a place called Rodenta with mice and everything. She saves everybody. Manages to I pop the weasel. It's stupid, but it's kind of funny. And there's this character called Emmett Otterman that she basically needs to, or Otterman, where she needs to find him. And, his wife really wants to find out what's going on. The chief basically says, okay, you have 48 hours, essentially. By the way, the mayor, Mayor Lionheart, is voiced by J.K. Simmons. Not that you could tell from the first, tones. Very distinct voices in this. I'm not knocking one bit. There's a lot of talent on here, but Jesus Christ. Tommy Chong voices a seemingly a yak-like animal, and boy, not that you could tell it was Tommy Chong. It's so just, subtle. Like a freaking weed cloud hitting you in the face over and over. Or like a Lakitu hitting you with a spike. By the way, Super Mario Galaxy, that trailer just dropped today for those that are watching this later on. And that's going to be an interesting movie. So, basically, we get to probably the best scene of the movie, where after getting the license plate number of that car that hit me, that kid, of course, no car has hit me, at least yet, even though people are unsafe drivers here in Washington State. They go to the DMV and Flash, the sloth, that kind of click. People could argue that scene does go a little bit long, and yes, it does, but it is pure Disney. It was funny. The three-humped camel being pregnant, okay. It's funny because she got humped. And now, basically, they are trying to find this car. They find this car. It's in a frozen tundra, so to speak. It's Mr. Big's limo. Here he is. Mr. Big's is actually a little mouse. And this is where the Godfather references come in. But because Judy is a charmer, and also, the Mr. Big's daughter is going to get married, essentially, he decides to help them out because they were good people. And now she's still got 48 hours to solve this damn thing, and the time is ticking. And then she sees a limo driver, talks to him, and it's reference to the night howlers. Night howlers are possible wolves, but animals going savage. But then the animal goes absolutely batshit insane. The driver goes absolutely batshit insane, starts chasing him in all this kind of stuff. They manage to get on this gondola, and they get a hold of the police. And by the way, the only reason that Nick and Judy are working together is because Judy recorded him saying that he had made a whole bunch of money 365 days a year. That was tax evasion. So now this. And that factors into a carrot tape a little bit later on, where they get the police involved after they discover timber wolves and, doing the howling and stuff like that. Oh, they're the night howlers. All 14 of these predators are there. They managed to break them, or, they managed to get, the lab exposed. So, bingo bango, we have our end of the movie, but we still got time left. So even though there's talk of the predators and stuff like that, and predators have a key component or biological component in their DNA, she ends up pissing off Nick, which, yes, he had told her about being bullied and stuff like that, and maybe they just need to see a fox instead of being, himself. Judy ends up getting really upset by all this because she didn't mean to piss him off, and even though she is going to be made the face of the Zoo PD, the Zootopia PD, she doesn't want it because now it's causing issues between predator and prey. So maybe she, instead of making the world a safer place, a better place, she made it worse. So she decides to go back to her hometown. And Nick, meanwhile, is just doing whatever he's doing. And she turns in her badge. Damn it, I want your gun in your badge. And she ends up basically going back to be a vendor at her parents' farm. Gideon shows up, and he's working with them. He apologizes to her, had a lot of repressed anger, but realistically, he apologizes because he was in the wrong. She understands, everything's good, okay. And then she sees these flowers. These flowers are referred to their nickname, night howlers. Oh, it's a flower component, and that's what's causing the animals to go savage. But how exactly? How is all this happening? Because they're all trying to be rehabilitated, out of the lab and everything. And the mayor was shown being, aware of this, and the chief doesn't know. And also, weird how Bellwether, just always seems to be around. Always seems to be around. That's a bit strange. So basically, she goes back and asks Nick for help. And there's okay, it's kind of moving here. She says, I'm a terrible friend. And you help me, you can hate, and afterwards you can hate me. And then he plays the thing, the carrot, tape. Nice little, reference to earlier. Flipping it around on her. Don't worry, I'll erase it in 48 hours. So then we get a little scene with bootleg movies of the weasel, selling the weasel that basically had gotten all these, what they thought were onions, but were actually seeds for night howlers. And talks to Mr. Big. Basically, there is a lab where night howlers are being, grown. And it's on an old train. An old train that somehow still moves. They didn't think to put this I guess it sort of makes sense that they would get the stuff in there, but it doesn't look like that train could move. They managed to get that train moving back into Zootopia. Conveniently, it only takes like about 2 minutes, so I guess everything is just like Springfield. Everything is really close together. They crash the train blows up, but they do have a case that has this stuff. And then Bellwether just happened to show up because there were sheep. They were doing that stuff. Wolves in sheep's clothing. Subtle, Disney. Subtlety. Not your strong suit, but that's fine. Turns out Bellwether's behind it. She says that prey outnumber predators 10-1. We can control them, but only if we do it this way. And she's got the gun that's used to shoot the night howler stuff, the compound on, and it just turns Nick Farrell. He's like, yeah, you doing all this, and he bites her on the neck, and then it turns out to be a ruse. It's all a ruse. It actually was pretty good how they did that. Turns out to be a ruse, and Bellwether meanwhile had said her entire plan. Good voicing by Jenny Slate here. And they end up essentially, catching her in the act. They had taken, the recording on the carapan, so it's, it's called a hustle. It's, it's not my word against yours, it's yours against yours. And there we are. So basically, they ended up teaming up. That was a nice little piece there. And they do what they can to rehabilitate the animals, including Otterton. And now Nick is a cop. And you try to make the world a better place. And then there's also a street racer that's going by, going by really, really fast. And, gee, I wonder who it is. Flash. It's a sloth. Nick. I don't know why that was funny. And there we go. And the gazelle sings. The gazelle who was Shakira. That was a running gag throughout the entire goddamn thing. And that is Zootopia. So, yeah, Zootopia made a lot of money. I imagine Zootopia 2 will do pretty goddamn well, but I won't know for about 2 weeks. A lot of movies coming out, folks. Not including older stuff, even like this, or even stuff that came out a couple of years ago. I've seen 278 movies released this year. That's getting close to the 337 that I saw last year. And yeah, you might have noticed this is mostly turned into a movie channel. Why? Because it's more fun than a lot of the wrestling. That is Zootopia, though. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Ritlin, and until we see the animals tear each other apart again, you're tearing me apart, animals. Happy trails to you.